Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. You are welcome. So nice to see Your Holiness. Maharaj, your mic is muted. Kindly unmute your mic, please.
Yes.
Yes. Hare Krishna Maharaj, my humble obeisances.
Right.
We're very happy to see Your Holiness today, to have your darshan. You are highly welcome.
I'm happy to be with you all.
Welcome to Africa for the new year.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maharaj. We know that Your Holiness like to do bhajan before the class, so we can start. You can start the bhajan while people keep coming in.
Yes. I will lead the Mangala Charana prayers and a short kirtan, and then we will
Yes,
speak
Maharaj.
on Srimad Bhagavatam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuttha Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavangscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatham Vitam Stam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitangscha Namah Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Kacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschakya Deshatarine Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Guru Deva, Shira Guru Deva. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Pariprajakacharya Astottara Satasri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramhansa Pariprajakacharya Astottara Satasri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Jamuna Mai Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Samveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Glories to Srila Prabhupada. So, my dear devotees, we will speak on Srimad Bhagavatam. As far as possible, please turn on your cameras so we can see your moon-like faces. We have been assigned 2 verses from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 7. the son of Drona punished. Text 29 and then text 30. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Again, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 7, the son of Drona punished. Text 29. Sutta uvacha shrutva bhagavata proktam falguna paraviraha sprishtabhastam parikramya brahmam brahmastram sandade. Translation. Sri Sutta Goswami said, hearing from the personality of Godhead, Arjuna touched water for purification, and after circumambulating Sri Krishna, he cast his Brahmastra weapon to counteract the other one. So there are many lessons to be derived just from this one verse without a purport. The Vedic literatures are called a desire tree. Nigama kalpataror galitam phalam. And Srimad Bhagavatam is the ripened fruit of the desire tree of Vedic scriptures. It is a desire tree because it provides knowledge for the fulfillment of all desires in every field of life. For example, there is the Dhanus Veda, which provides information about warfare. Dhanus means literally bow and arrow. There's the Ayurveda, which gives information about the ayus, our duration of life, and how we can prolong our duration of life in a healthy condition. And here we see Arjuna. He is a devotee, but he is also a warrior. It is not that a devotee can act only as a Brahmin, there's so many Brahminical qualities mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. Satyam, Socham, being truthful, being clean. Cleanliness is very important for Brahmins. Internal cleanliness and external cleanliness. But Arjuna was also a devotee, but not a Brahmin. He was born into a Kshatriya family, and he was acting as a Kshatriya, but he was also a great devotee. So one can be a great devotee in any position. I recall one conversation on Juhu Beach, which has some history, which is necessary to understand the significance of the conversation on Juhu Beach. So as many of you know, there was a big struggle to get the Juhu land because the owner of the land, Mr. A.B. Nair, was a cunning cheater. He had cheated others before us, and he also wanted to cheat Srila Prabhupada. And he was, doing his best. So at one stage, during this struggle, Srila Prabhupada visited Bombay because of the complications with Mr. Nair. We didn't have any proper place for Srila Prabhupada on Hare Krishna land, so he was staying at a life member's home in the Juhu Vilaparla development scheme. And that, the wife particularly was very pious, and she named the house, because in India they give names to the houses, and she named the house Hare Krishna House. And in fact, sometimes taxi drivers and rickshaw-wallas would get confused because people would ask to be driven to Hare Krishna land, and they would drive the passenger to the Hare Krishna house. So anyway, at one point, Mr. Nair had bluffed me. And when Srila Prabhupada came, Tamal Krishna Goswami told Prabhupada how Nair had fooled me. I felt that Tamal Krishna Goswami was expecting Srila Prabhupada to chide me. But he didn't. He just said, Giriraj is simple. What can be done? So, okay, that definitely made an impression on me. So then later, maybe a year later, we were walking on Juhu Beach, and Srila Prabhupada was having the disciples read Krishna book as we walked. And in Krishna book, we came to a portion when Gargamuni made some predictions about Krishna's future. And at that time, Nanda Maharaj was referred to as being simple. And so I was struck by this because I thought being simple was a disqualification given the circumstances under which Srila Prabhupada said I was simple. And Srila Prabhupada said that, that Nanda Maharaj was a simple agriculturist. So for him, to be simple was not a fault. Whereas Vasudev was a Kshatriya, and therefore, he had to be very clever, in diplomatic dealings. And then Srila Prabhupada said that the central point for both Vasudeva and Nanda Maharaj was Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada said it doesn't matter what you are, as long as the central point is Krishna. Everyone's service is appreciated according to his capacity. So now, coming back to today's verses. So Arjuna touched water for purification. So the warfare practiced by Arjuna was very sophisticated. It was based largely on mantras. So he touched water for purification. And he circumambulated Lord Krishna. Circumambulating is practically the highest form of respect. And so he circumambulated Krishna because he was acting in obedience to Krishna's order, and also because he knew that he could be successful only by Krishna's mercy. And that is Krishna's instruction in the Bhagavad Gita. Yudhyacha mam smaram, to fight according to your capacity, but depend on Krishna, to remember Krishna. So, Sri Sutta Goswami said, hearing this from the personality of Godhead, hearing this refers to the previous verse, O Arjuna, only another Brahmastra can counteract this weapon. Since you are expert in the military science, subdue this weapon's glare with the power of your own weapon. So, in the military science, one weapon could counteract another weapon. Yes, someone could throw an arrow, say, but those arrows are not just ordinary arrows. The arrows were infused with power by mantras. And then one could release his own arrow to counteract the other arrow. So here, Lord Krishna instructed Arjuna to counteract Aswatthama's Brahmastra with his own Brahmastra. So hearing this from the personality of Godhead, Arjuna touched water for purification. And after circumambulating Lord Krishna, he cast his Brahmastra weapon to counteract the other one. Now, text 30. Samhat yonyam ubayos tejasi shara samrite avritya rodasi kamcha vavridate ka vanivat. Samat janyonyam ubayos tejasi shara samrite avritya rodasi kamcha vavridate kavanivat. Translation. When the rays of the two Brahmastras combined, a great circle of fire, like the disk of the sun, covered all outer space and the whole firmament of planets. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The heat created by the flash of a Brahmastra resembles the fire exhibited in the sun globe at the time of cosmic annihilation, which means extremely intense. The radiation of atomic energy is very insignificant in comparison to the heat produced by a Brahmastra. So generally, people nowadays consider themselves to be more advanced than people were in the past. What to speak of thousands of years ago. But here we can see how much more advanced, even in terms of military science, were people during Krishna's time, 5,000 years ago. We think it's a big thing. We discovered the atom bomb. Of course, it's also true that Robert Oppenheimer, who developed the bomb, when he actually saw it used, he thought of a verse from the Bhagavad Gita, which he quoted, in which Krishna says, "Time I am the destroyer of worlds." So he was also a little Krishna conscious. But the atomic bomb is very primitive in comparison with the Brahmastra. Not only is its power insignificant, but it's blind. The atomic bomb, it will kill anyone and everyone, men, women, children, the enemy, and innocent people who just happen to be there. Whereas the Brahmastra can be aimed at a particular person and it will pursue that person and it will not harm anyone else. So, the heat created by the flash of a Brahmastra resembles the fire exhibited in the sun globe at the time of cosmic annihilation. The radiation of atomic energy is very insignificant in comparison to the heat produced by a Brahmastra. The atomic bomb explosion can at utmost blow up one globe. Actually, they don't, so far, they're not able to blow up a whole globe, but they do blow up a portion of the globe where they're dropped. The atomic bomb explosion can at most blow up one globe, but the heat produced by the Brahmastra can destroy the whole cosmic situation. The comparison is therefore made to the heat at the time of annihilation. And the next verse describes what people experienced. And I'll just read that. Text 31. All the population of the three worlds was scorched by the combined heat of the weapons. Everyone was reminded of the Samvartaka fire, which takes place at the time of annihilation. So here we see that Lord Krishna is advising Arjuna to be violent, you could say, to release the deadly Brahmastra weapon. And during the battle of Kurukshetra, while speaking the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna advised Arjuna to fight. And Srila Prabhupada explains that non-violence is not possible in the material world. Although Mahatma Gandhi tried to, he would always carry the Bhagavad Gita with him, and he would claim his nonviolent protest was derived from the Bhagavad Gita. But how can you derive nonviolence from the Bhagavad Gita? The Bhagavad Gita, Krishna's urging Arjuna to fight. So nonviolence is not possible in the material world because bad people use violence, and so good people may have to use violence to counteract the violence of the bad people. So, of course, in a way, devotees are nonviolent. They won't harm even an ant unnecessarily. And nonviolence, ahimsa, is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita as a virtue. But sometimes violence is required. Of course, in the spiritual world, there's no violence because there's no bad people. And even good people, well, everyone in the spiritual world is a good person. They don't need to use violence to counteract the violence of bad people. But in the material world, violence is required. In Juhu, we faced tremendous opposition, and sometimes violence was used against us. And Srila Prabhupada said that if we have, for example, 40 devotees, 10 should be Brahmins, 10 should be Kshatriya. And, by Kshatriya, he meant it. He said, if someone comes to attack the temple, the Kshatriyas should come out to defend the temple. And then he said 10 Vaishyas and 10 Sudras. And then one, he will tell all the other 40 what to do. Now, coming to the Kshatriya spirit, I'm reminded of our dear, friend and supporter, Sri P.L. Sethi, who was, a very dear friend of Srila Prabhupada, staunch. His devotion for Srila Prabhupada reminded me of Hanuman's devotion to Lord Rama. And I'm going to read a little from my book about Srila Prabhupada at Juhu, about that Kshatriya spirit. So, it's a long story, but at one stage, the municipality demolished our small temple, semi-permanent temple, and fortunately, the demolition was stopped by the intervention of Balasaheb Thackeray, the founder of the Shiva Sena political party in Bombay. He phoned the municipal commissioner and he told him, to stop the demolition. And the municipal commissioners said, that we don't have permission for the temple, which wasn't true. It was a flat lie. And Balasaheb Thackeray said, just remember who this city belongs to. So then the municipal commissioner, MW, decides, yes, Balasaheb, yes. So he phoned the ward officer to stop the demolition. And the local ward officer of the K ward, he personally came running to the site to stop the demolition. So after the temple was demolished, we wanted to rebuild it. And we were, trying to get support to get permission to rebuild it. But at a certain stage, we realized that we didn't need permission to rebuild it because we already had permission for it. So Mrs. Nair went to the court to get an injunction to prevent us from rebuilding the temple. That was on a Friday. And the judge said that he would not give any injunction without hearing us. And she said, well, just a temporary injunction. He said, no, I will not give any injunction without hearing the other side. So we had the weekend to rebuild the temple because once the temple was rebuilt, getting an injunction to stop us from rebuilding it would be meaningless. So, there are many details, but Mr. Sethi really demonstrated his Kshatriya spirit. So he was in Juhu with his family to check on his house under construction and enjoy a weekend beach outing. And before returning home, he thought of visiting the temple. When we came, he recalled, we saw that the small shed had been demolished. And the description given to us of the demolition was horrifying. Not only was the temple demolished, but they wanted to take away the deities. Mr. Sethi was in poor health, but he declared, no matter what laborers are available or not, I will rebuild the temple and I will do the labor myself. As it turned out, he was able to bring plenty of laborers and also supplies from his own construction sites because he was a builder. In the course of the day, Mrs. Nair, Matre, and Mrs. Nair's solicitor, Bachubai Shah, all came to the site. Matre demanded that we halt the construction. No, Mr. Seti replied. Why should we stop? You can build it up, Matre threatened, but I will come in the night with 50 gundas, hooligans, and break it down. Mr. Seti turned to his son, who was by his side, and said, Brij Mohan, bring my revolver and my rifle. Then he said to Matre, don't bring 50 gundas, bring 100, bring 200. I have 250 cartridges. He used the word cartouche. I have 250 cartridges. You'll have to bring at least 251. Mr. Seti had a Kshatriya side, and he was staunch. Quote, they did not count on the amazing heroism and bravery of my personal hero, Mr. P.L. Seti, Maithili Dasi later said, echoing everyone's admiration. As Brij Mohan Seti remembered, so with the revolver in my hand and the rifle in Daddy's hand, we started the work. We could do this not because of something in us, but because of the blessings of Prabhupada. Only with his blessings and mercy could we start the construction. The entire night it was raining cats and dogs. That means raining very heavily. But we never stopped the work. It went on. As the rain fell, Mr. Seti recalled how by lifting Govardhan Hill, Lord Krishna had protected the inhabitants from the devastating rainfall sent by Indra. He was unperturbed. Indra wants to test me, he thought. All right, if you want to come down, you can come down more heavily. But I have the blessings of Srila Prabhupada. I have to rebuild the temple, and I will. Mr. Seti and his son, the Friends in Life members, and the laborers stayed up all night to protect and complete the construction. I was there with a gun, Mr. Seti recounted. We started at 9. At 11, one man came at the road, but I challenged him. If you come inside, I will shoot you. And he ran away and shouted to some other men. They're ready to fight. Don't go there. Don't go there. Sridhar was at the site too, chanting japa in the jeep. When someone asked him why he was there, he joked, if anybody comes, I can make a quick escape. Actually, this is Sridhar Swami speaking, actually the whole thing was right in keeping with my nature. When there is a good chance to fight for Krishna, I don't run away from it. It was very exciting. I was ready. We stayed up all night, miserable night, but we were waiting for them to come. Mr. Seti had his gun and I had a knife or some other weapon. And it was rebuilt overnight. Matre returned around 7 the next morning, but by then it was too late. It is built, we told him. Go to the court. Later that morning, we appeared in the High Court and told the judge that the temple had already been built. What is built, he said to Mrs. Nair. No one can destroy the temple. When Prabhupada heard the news, he considered it a complete victory. So I'll just read a little more just on this point of violence and the Kshatriya spirit, which is required in Krishna service. During the temple construction, Mr. Seti had demonstrated his Kshatriya spirit, for which Prabhupada expressed his appreciation, also teaching us a lesson that sometimes a fighting spirit was required. Quote, "In this way we have to fight," he said later. "We should not be afraid for these rascals. Why should you be afraid? If they take to Gundaism, we shall engage 50 Gundas. Come on, let us see. We have to maintain that spirit. Anyaya ye kari Prabhu ara anyaya ye sahe." Rabindranath Tagore's poetry. One who does wrong and one who suffers wrong, he is wrong. One should not do anything wrong. One should not suffer anything wrong. That is human. If someone does harm to me, wrong to me, I cannot suffer it. I shall not do harm to anyone. That is all right. But if you want to give me suffering, I must fight you. Why shall I suffer? That is Kshatriya spirit. Yudye chapya palayanam. If you are challenging, then all right. Come on, I accept this challenge. We have to do like that. And then Srila Prabhupada quoted from this section of Srimad Bhagavatam, in which Krishna himself instructed Arjuna. This is 1:753 and 54. The personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna said, "A friend of a Brahmin is not to be killed, but if he is an aggressor, he must be killed." All these rulings are in the scriptures, and you should act accordingly. Then Prabhupada said, if there is a fight, we must be prepared to fight. Mr. Seti mentioned me, that I had supported him, and I responded, referring to him. He's very heroic. He was very heroic. Yes, Prabhupada said, he's a Kshatriya. So referring to the rebuilding of the temple, Mr. Seti said, I declared if they challenge us, I'm ready. Come on. In the night at the temple, I challenged, come on. You are 150, we are not afraid. When Matre came with that barrister to give Giriraj notice, I scolded and insulted him publicly. Therefore, Prabhupada said, Matre was so against that we must stop this. Yes, I heard that. I heard from that doctor that he was insulted by Seti. So either Seti should go, this man was telling Prabhupada that Seti should go, like that. He repeated, he gave me a hint, remove Seti. But I, that's Prabhupada speaking, I will not let that happen. And that doctor of Matre was Matre's man. He also gave a hint, give Matre 2 lakhs of rupees. He was a canvasser on behalf of Matre. He wanted 2 lakhs. We will not give you a single paisa, Mr. Seti concluded. We will fight you. Come on. So, yeah, this is part of Krishna consciousness. It's part of Krishna consciousness, and Arjuna exhibited that Kshatriya spirit. Of course, he was a Kshatriya, and Mr. Seti, our dear beloved Mr. Seti, he also exhibited that Kshatriya spirit, and sometimes we may be required to do that. But again, as Srila Prabhupada said, we have different natures, but as long as Krishna is the central point, how to please Krishna by our work and activities, then we are perfect. Jai. So thank you very much. And if there's time, I think that there should be a few minutes, we can take questions and comments. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna, thank you for this wonderful class. We have lots of time for some questions.
Okay.
Please, anyone has question, kindly raise your hand. I shall call you to ask your question. Maharaj, my first question is on the Brahmastra, where Prabhupada said if it's a fight, we should be prepared to fight. How do we know when, as a devotee, when our fight is in the mode of goodness, passion, or ignorance?
How do we know? I'm sorry.
How do we know when our fight is in the mode of the three gunas?
Oh, yes. Yes.
The mode of goodness, passion, or ignorance? Because one can just say, any little thing, I'm going to fight. It may not really be necessary. So how do we know the right time to fight? Like Krishna is telling Arjuna to fight. That's my first question. Then the second question is Krishna telling Arjuna, telling Aswatthama, Arjuna to counteract Aswatthama's Brahmastra. I don't understand how they were trying to kill people, and Krishna is giving protection to people, the soldiers in the battle of Kurukshetra. So the question is, Krishna is telling Arjuna to counteract the Brahmastra, but Prabhupada, upon all the troubles he encountered, he tolerated all these negativities. It seems that Prabhupada is more merciful than Krishna in this regard.
Well, I would agree that Srila Prabhupada is more merciful than Krishna. Of course, Srila Prabhupada is a manifestation of Krishna's mercy. And his whole purpose in his preaching mission was to ultimately bring people to the stage of love of Krishna. Premo Pumartha Mahan. That's the ultimate perfection of life, to develop love for Krishna. And in general, as I mentioned, ahimsa, non-violence, devotees do practice ahimsa. They only resort to violence when it's required. Usually, practically only to counteract someone else's violence. Like I mentioned, a good person may have to use violence to counteract a bad person's use of violence. But otherwise, we don't harm even an ant. That is our nonviolence. We don't harm even a mosquito. Although Srila Prabhupada said that if a mosquito is in the act of biting you, he is an aggressor, and then you have the right to kill him. But otherwise not.
So how do we know when our fight is in the mode of goodness, passion, or ignorance?
Well, fight with whom? You shouldn't fight with devotees. As far as devotees come, we can sometimes, for the sake of Prabhupada and Krishna's service, we can fight. Because once at the Hyderabad farm in India, there were three very strong, very individualistic personalities. And Prabhupada put the three of them in charge of the project. And he said, you meet together, you fight like cats and dogs, and then when you all agree, you go ahead. So that fighting, of course, means verbal disagreement. Yeah, but physical fighting, I mean, yes, if someone attacks the devotees on Sankirtan physically, yeah, we might have to retaliate physically. But otherwise, but yeah, I'm sure there can be fighting in the mode of goodness, fighting in the mode of passion, and fighting in the mode of ignorance. But our goal is transcendental fighting.
Thank you, Maharaj. Our next question is from Sumitra Vasu.
Hare Krishna,
Sumitra Vasu, please.
Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you very much. I really can't wait to get my hands on the book. It was wonderful. Maharaj, my question is about, you mentioned fighting is necessary when it is done in the service of Krishna and when Krishna is in the center. In our work, we are trying our best to see Krishna in what we do. And when there are issues, how do we know that when we fight for certain causes, are we fighting for Krishna or are we fighting for our own self?
That is a very good question. And I've heard many devotees struggle with the question in the workplace, because often there's politics in the workplace. And generally devotees don't want to get involved in politics. But as Srila Prabhupada quoted, we should not do harm to anyone, but we also should not suffer harm. If we do harm to someone, that is wrong. And if we suffer harm, that is wrong. So, you know, if we can counteract the politics against us without becoming too disturbed. I mean, obviously we are going to be disturbed when people are making politics against us. Yeah, if we can counteract it, we should. Like Prabhupada said, we should do no harm and we should suffer no harm. But if it becomes too much, you know, if it becomes too much of a distraction from your Krishna consciousness and your other priorities, then sometimes you have to let it go. As it said, you know, choose your fights. But sometimes we may have to let it go. But if we can counteract that wrong without too much difficulty, then we should. We shouldn't let people take advantage of us. I mean, in Juhu, Srila Prabhupada told one of the devotees that we should be very smart. We should be very smart. And that after people deal with us, for example, if they try to cheat us or whatever it is, that after people deal with us, they should go and tell their friends that these Hare Krishna people may look like fools, but they're actually very smart. Don't mess with them. So people should feel that way about you as well. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj. Our next question is from Sahadev Prabhu.
Okay.
Sahadev, kindly unmute.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much. It's always blissful to have your association.
My pleasure.
It's very amazing and interesting at the same time, the class you just gave today, because a couple of days ago, some of us, the African devotees, had a meeting, and I do not want to go into details about the meeting we had, but whoever was on that meeting and also in this class will learn a very tremendous cue from your class today, because you spoke pretty much like you were at the meeting. And those of us who were there, I'm sure, will be able to learn a lot from your class today. So thank you very much for the class. My question is about weaponry. In African tradition, they also have something similar to like mantra, yantra, tantra, as we have in the Vedas, where somebody combines certain concoctions, either herbs or prayers, and some things happen. And my question is, if chanting mantras, like Drona chanting a mantra and invoking this Brahmastra, even though he didn't know how to retract, but simply because he chanted the mantra perfectly, it had to act. And that means that whoever the demigod is responsible for that, had to comply. And that seems to me that this demigod's life somehow is very pathetic and miserable, because somebody asked them to do something, even though they can tell that this person is wrong, but simply because they've chanted the mantra, they simply have to comply. Is that the case? And if that is the case, why wouldn't the particular demigod in charge say that, no, even though you've chanted this mantra, this weapon can be released, but you don't deserve it?
Now, where exactly do the demigods come into this story?
No, my question is, when you chant mantras,
Oh God.
when you chant mantras, is it understood to be demigods or demigoddesses or some spirits behind the mantra, making the mantra effective?
Oh.
Just like when we chant Maha Mantra, the mantra involves Krishna. And so Krishna helps us with whatever prayer we're praying for. And so I'm not 100% right, but my understanding is if one chants mantras, he is invoking beings to act according to their plans. And if the particular demigod or demigoddess in charge of the request understands that even though this person is asking for this favor, but he is wrong, he doesn't deserve this favor, but because the person has chanted the mantra, he's still going to have the results.
Well, there is a difference between demigods and Krishna, in that Krishna is very considerate in terms of giving boons. And he will not give someone a boon if he knows that the person will misuse it. Whereas other demigods, they're not so considerate. And if someone, worships them in the prescribed manner, they may give the person a boon, even if the person might misuse it, as was the case with Ravana. Well, there are many cases, actually. There are many cases. There's one, Rikasura. He anyway, there's many details. But at the end of it, Krishna sort of chided Lord Shiva, or corrected Lord Shiva, that, don't indiscriminately give boons to people who may misuse it. So Krishna actually had to intervene to save Lord Shiva's life. So from the from the boon he gave to a worshiper. So yes, that is a very good point. It's a very good point. Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments? Rajeshwari, are you raising your hand?
Yes, Maharaj. The next question comes from Malati Dase.
Oh, wait,
Malati
I just
Dase.
called.
Okay.
All right.
Rajeshwari, please unmute yourself.
Thank you. Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. Please accept my pranam. Maharaj, are you there?
I am.
Okay, I couldn't see you, sorry. Maharaj, I've been struggling with this question for so long, but I'm not getting satisfying answer from myself or from the around people. Any book I pick up, Prabhupada, any book, any page we open, any paragraph, most of them, everywhere, Prabhupada is mentioning about devotional service. Everywhere, even you talk about a lot. Whoever gives the Bhagavatam class or any speaker, they talk about devotional service. And last week, Davida Prabhu was mentioning in that class, pure devotional service. So I'm saying, what is that? There must be very deep meaning behind when Prabhupada is emphasizing on devotional service, must be very deep meaning. So what is that meaning? Can you simplify and tell us, please?
Yes.
And then devotional service and a pure devotional service, new word came, pure devotional service, and how we can achieve it. How can I achieve it? And what I can do it, what I have to work on it. Sorry, Maharaj. Yes.
So devotional service is a translation of bhakti or bhakti yoga. And Srila Rupa Goswami gives the definition of pure devotional service. Anya vilasita sunyam jnana karmadi anavritam anukulyena krishna anushilanam bhakti uttama. And so anya vilasita sunyam means without any other desire, pretty much. Anya vilasita sunyam. Jnana karmadi anavritam. It should not be covered by jnana or karma or anything else. Anukulyena, that means it should be favorable to Krishna. Anukulyena Krishna anushilanam. So shilanam means cultivation, and anu has two meanings. One meaning is to follow. So one should cultivate devotional service following sadhu, shastra, and guru. And anu also means continuous. So it should be a continuous cultivation. Not that I engage in devotional service for some time and then, okay, I've had enough, then I do something else. Nonsense, and then come back and do devotional service. No, anu kulyena Krishna anushilanam. It should be a continuous cultivation. Bhakti uttama. That is a pure devotional service. And in simple terms, it means that we should not engage in devotional service to get any material result in return. Neither facility for sense gratification or facility for impersonal liberation. And Srila Prabhupada's, so that devotional service, even pure devotional service, goes through different stages, as Rupa Goswami says, ado shraddha tata sadhu sangha tata bhajana kriya anarthana vritti syat. And then, ruchi, asakti, bhava, and prema. But Srila Prabhupada said even from the beginning, we are engaged in pure devotional service, can be engaged in pure devotional service. He gave the example of an unripe mango and a ripe mango. Both are mangoes. So we can be pure devotees in the sense that we're engaging in pure devotional service. But in the beginning, we may be like the unripe mango, maybe a little hard or a little sour. But then if we continue with the process, then we become like the ripened mango, which is soft and sweet and juicy and full of nectar. So the only thing is to continue and not commit offenses along the way. If you continue with the process of devotional service and avoid offenses, then you'll eventually reach the ripened stage of perfection.
Okay. Thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
I asked this.
Yes?
I asked this question to Narendra Prabhu, and then he answered, and he said, "Who's your Guru Maharaj?" And I mentioned about you. He says, "Oh, your Guru Maharaj is here, and I'm here. You asked your Guru Maharaj this question again." And he was sending the pranam to you as well, Maharaj. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Narendra Prabhu. Yeah, he's a great soul.
Thank you, Hare.
All right, our next question is from Malati Dase. Malati, please unmute your mic.
Malati.
Hare
Yes.
Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Can you hear me?
I can.
Please accept my humble obeisance with the dust of your lotus feet, Guru Maharaj. Actually, when we are having an argument or a verbal fight with someone, sometimes it doesn't come on you as a person, but there is many people looking over this fight, and the person concerned, they blame the organization as ISKCON, like devotees are fighting, and the other devotees also, they have a image, they have a bad image on the whole organization. So what is better? It's better to have Brahminical qualities, or you should really maintain that that Kshatriya mood sometimes. But when you're having a fight in front of many, so what is the situation, Maharaj, we should follow?
Yeah, that's a very good point, that our actions reflect on Srila Prabhupada and ISKCON. And if people see devotees fighting with each other, or even fighting with a non-devotee, it can reflect badly on Srila Prabhupada and ISKCON. So we should avoid being in that situation. If it's not that important, we can just let it go. Or if it is important, but the circumstances are not good because of the onlookers, you can say, one of two things. You could like artificially agree, and then go back to the person and say, I agreed because I didn't want us to be fighting in front of others, but actually I don't agree. But I didn't want to discuss it in front of others. Or you could just say, Yeah, I don't think this is the right time and place to discuss this. We can discuss it, some other time. But yeah, that's a very good point. Very, very important point. We should not give a bad name to Srila Prabhupada or ISKCON. Very important. Yeah. Then in private, you can bring out your Brahmastra.
Maharaj, talking about Brahmastra and devotees and fighting, that brings another question, because even among devotees, we have differences. We also fight. Even during the time of Prabhupada, the disciples were competing among themselves. Who pleased Prabhupada the best? They also fight. But then, like someone was saying, it's difficult to attain perfection when you are being provoked and you are boiling with anger and you cannot explode the anger. It's difficult because you want to be a devotee. You are talking about Brahmanical qualities, but something is just not right. And if you also keep silent, that means also you're also committing violence by not protecting or fighting for your rights. Or let somebody just think that because you're a devotee, you're just good for nothing, you don't know anything. So for me, it's difficult to maintain peace in the name of we want to attain perfection, we want to be non-violence.
Well, again, it depends on the circumstances. Lord Chaitanya said, Shinada Pisuni Chena Tarara Pisi Hishnana Amanina Manadena Kirtanya Sadahari. So for ourselves, we should be humbler than a blade of grass and more tolerant than a tree. Ready to offer all respects to others and not wanting any respect for ourselves. That should be our mood personally. But when there's an offense against the Lord or another devotee, then we may react differently. And Srila Prabhupada gives the example when Jagai and Madhai attacked Nityananda Prabhu. And actually blood was coming from the forehead of Nityananda Prabhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu rushed to the site with his Sudarshan chakra. He was ready to kill Jagai and Madhai. So Srila Prabhupada says that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is the author of the verse, Chinada Pisuni Chena Tarara Pisahishnu, he showed by his personal example that when there's a case of an offense against a devotee or the Lord, then one should not be, manifest that being humble and tolerant, but should take action. And it is an offense to hear blasphemy. It's not an offense. It's not an offense only to speak blasphemy. It's also an offense to hear blasphemy. And therefore one should either silence the blasphemer by one's argument, or if that's not possible under the circumstances, then leave the place. But we should not hear blasphemy. That's a fact.
Thank you, Maharaj. We have a question from Sabita Abhiraman. Sabita, please submit. Yep.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to Auntie Lotus Feet. So when I go for preaching and distributing books, sometimes the non-devotees who we speak to, they say things that are like offensive to Krishna or to Srila Prabhupada. So we try to argue and fight most of the time and want to prove that what they're saying is wrong. But at some point, they don't listen. Then what do we do at that time? Because I still want to give them a book at least and spread Krishna consciousness.
Yeah. Well, one approach would be to say that of course, it depends on the circumstances because people might take it otherwise. But you could say that you don't agree with what the person is saying, but you request him to take the book and read the book. And if he still feels the same way after reading the book, then you're willing to discuss.
Most of them, we don't even meet after we finish the preaching. So you're never going to meet them again. So.
Well, as long as they take the book,
Yeah.
that's the main thing. Yeah, I remember once I was in a situation in which, she's sort of a pious lady, but she was speaking Mayavad nonsense. And I was with her daughter and son-in-law, and they revered her, and she was a pious lady, but she happened to have impersonal contamination. And I thought, if I contradict her, it's going to spoil the mood of the meeting, and it won't be good for anyone. So then I thought, well, best is if she just reads Srila Prabhupada's books. I said, I'm not going to call her a fool and a rascal, but I'll give her Srila Prabhupada books, and he'll call her a fool and a rascal.
Okay.
But that's okay. Just give them the book.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Any other question? Kindly ask Maharaj. Maharaj, we want to ask how long do we have? Would you like to take more questions?
You never know how long we have. So we should live every moment in full Krishna consciousness. But if you're asking about the questions and answers, I can continue for a little longer. If there are.
Yes, Maharaj. My
Krishna Priya is raising her finger.
who? I don't see.
Maharaj.
Yes. Yes.
Please accept my humble obeisances for our Gracia Prabhupada. I'm sorry that I cannot always attend your classes, although I want to, but there is time difference. So today was at 6 o'clock in the same time as in Africa, so I thought I'm going to join in. Very nice to see you and be able to speak directly like this. Thank you very much for the class, wonderful class as ever. Very enlivening and a lot of points to learn from. And I was just wondering, because you're quoting Rabindranath Tagore,
yes.
Say, Anyay na kara, anyay na saha. So it means don't inflict unrighteousness to anyone else, and don't tolerate any injustice. But then I was thinking, we have like great personalities like Jesus Christ and Haridas Thakur. Such great injustices were done to them, and they just tolerated it. And I also hear we have this verse, Trinatapi Sunichena Tarurapi Seshtuna, we should be humble and tolerant. So where do we draw the line that we don't take it when people insult us personally? Because normally we say we have to be tolerant when people insult us, or cause us any harm. But when we cannot tolerate when they hurt other devotees or the spiritual master. But it seems like it goes like against my personal nature kind of thing. If when I feel insulted, I do have the tendency to come up for myself, but then I wonder maybe that's not a good quality to have. And if so, how can I change it? So I cannot figure out how to draw the balance in that. And maybe you can guide me to find the finer balance. Thank you, Maharaj.
Yeah, if there's an insult to the Lord or a devotee, then as mentioned, you should try to defeat the person by argument, or if that's not possible, then just leave the place and don't listen. But as far as yourself reacting if someone insults you, so yeah, we know, Chinana Pisuni Chena Torara Pisi Shuna. But now why do you react? I would say that it's because you identify with the body and the mind, which are not you. So yeah, if someone insults you, they're not actually insulting you. They probably don't even know who you are, but they're insulting your body or your mind. So, just don't take it seriously. We have a saying in America, sticks and stones can break your bones, but names can never hurt you. So, yeah, just don't take it seriously. It's probably, what they're saying is probably more of reflection on them than a reflection on you. So, yeah, just don't take it seriously. Or, like Giriraj Prabhu, when you really try to chant seriously and attentively, then your anarthas come to the surface and you realize, how fallen you are in a way. And, Giriraj Prabhu is a very serious devotee and chanter. And so he says, when you develop that humility from attentive chanting, so he says, when people say bad things about him, he thinks that's the least of it. If you knew who I really was, you would be saying much worse things. So, yeah. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj. Dear devotees, we are in a general question. Feel free to ask Maharaj any question you want. Guru Maharaj, we go again to Sahadev. He has another question. Sahadev, please.
Yes, Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Well, I don't know, but Maharaj, whenever I see you, I hear from you, I feel so much nourished, and it makes me feel like, well, even though I do not have my guru, but he's still here. So thank you for being with us and continuing to bless us.
Thank you.
I heard from Shama Sundar Prabhu, your god brother, who said, of all his weaknesses, Srila Prabhupada never chastised him once. But Tamal Krishna Goswami was always receiving chastisements from Srila Prabhupada. So, like it says, the guru perfectly knows how to engage each and every devotee. In today's world, the guru is not stationed in just one place. He has disciples all over the world. And so the guru may pick one of his senior-most disciples to take care of the other devotees. And because this devotee who is sincerely trying to follow the instructions of the guru is trying to serve, but because he's not as pure, sometimes he might engage a junior devotee, and that engagement may not be very conducive, which sometimes may lead to the devotee blooping. In such a situation, does the representative have any, how should I say, like, does he play any role in that particular devotee's blooping? Because he was, especially if the devotee was just sincerely trying to follow the spiritual master's orders, instructions. But in some cases, the representative just uses his position to harass and disturb the disciple. But especially if the devotee is sincerely trying to engage the junior devotees in the service of Guru and Krishna, but somehow misengages and the person bloops, does he also suffer any consequences for the devotee's blooping? Hare Krishna.
Well, Srila Prabhupada said if someone leaves, we should take 50% of the responsibility. So I would say yes. And yeah, he might be sincerely trying to engage the more junior devotee, but he should be sensitive to the more junior devotee, how much that devotee can take and do, and how much he can't take and not do. So we should be very, very careful when we deal with devotees. You know, yeah. I mean, we might be appointed by the guru, but we should always be humble and not become puffed up. You know, there's a nice statement in Srimad Bhagavatam in relation to Lord Krishna's giving Lord Brahma service. And Srila Prabhupada said that, you know, that when one is entrusted with service by the Supreme Personality of Godhead or his representative, one is, you know, that the service is blessed and one is bound to be successful. But one should never become puffed up because he has been entrusted with some special service. So it would seem in the scenario that you described that the person got puffed up and he thought he could sort of lord it over the other devotee. So that's not good. He's responsible, at least 50%. And, you know, I don't know the circumstances, but he should repent. He should try to go back to that devotee who left and apologize and beg him to come back and give Krishna consciousness another chance. Or, yeah, as Srila Prabhupada said, every soul is important in Krishna consciousness.
Thank you, Maharaj. We have a question from Srila Prabhupada Warriors, my friend.
Okay.
Srila Prabhupada Warriors, kindly unmute yourself, please.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Like, can you please tell me about the devotees like women who want to work outside, but which Shastras also prohibited, and even like Srila Prabhupada said many times, like women want to take children care and like kids, And but I see many of devotees of women, they were working outside and they want to study. And I saw many quotes from Mothers and Masters book also. I read 2 times to match with Srila Prabhupada and philosophy. So what is your opinion about this one? So, and I see this was happening, many quarrels between like this issue. Can you tell me about this one?
Okay, can you put on your camera? Is it possible?
Now you can speak, so Maharaj can see you.
Yes, Prabhu, I can see you.
Okay. So now what exactly was the question? I sort of lost the thread. Can you repeat the question?
Can you please tell me about the devotees women who want to work outside? Which shastras prohibit them to work outside? Srila Prabhupada also said women not to work outside. And I also read many quotes from mothers and masters regarding women. And so, what is about your opinion on this one, Prabhu, like Maharaj?
Well, as far as working outside, association is very important. And so if you can work with devotees, that's ideal. And so during Srila Prabhupada's time, we had the spiritual sky incense factory. So grihastas could work and earn for their families, but in the association of devotees. So that's ideal. But you might not have that opportunity. I mean, that's a rare and fortunate occurrence. So then you work outside. And as Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, that when you in the workplace, you meet people. And, you have to be sort of polite with them and cordial with them. But he says, don't take advice from them, especially about your spiritual life. They can't give you good advice about your spiritual life. And then what were you saying about women?
He said that the women, Prabhupada said that women should not work outside.
Oh, women should not work outside?
Yes.
Well, I never specifically heard that. I mean, I think it would be, if, yeah, I never actually heard that. I think it would really depend on the circumstances. Yeah. I have, what can I say? I mean, this is maybe an odd example, but I have a disciple in England named Madhavidasi, who is married to a disciple of Tamal Krishna Goswami named Giriraj, who's a very important leader in ISKCON in England. And Madhavi became a barrister. She earns very well. And Tamal Krishna Goswami very earnestly thanked her for working like that, because by her working like that, her husband, Gauridas, was able to do so much service for the temple and the movement. So, yeah, I would say as a rule, the husband should be the one to work if only one is going to work. But there could be exceptions. And we should be careful about like judging and like, oh, Prabhupada said this, you're not following what Prabhupada said. Because, there may be many factors to consider. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I mean, with Prabhupada in India, the culture was very different then, and women didn't work that much, you know. They mostly took care of the families. But yeah, I never heard such a thing, and I don't think that Srila Prabhupada would find fault with a woman for working outside.
Thank you, Maharaj. Malati Dase has a second question. Malati Dase, please unmute.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Maharaj, my question is about offenses. Sometimes you don't realize that you have done an offense, and the person you come to know after some time, after the person is not picking up your calls or anything, you understand, oh, I've done something, but then you are trying to ask forgiveness, but the person is not ready to forgive you. So what should a person do when this situation comes, that the forgiveness is not coming from the other side? So how to save yourself from this, Guru Maharaj?
Yes, our great Acharya, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, discusses this possibility. And of course, the general procedure, if one has offended a Vaishnava, is that one should beg forgiveness from the Vaishnava. And generally, the Vaishnava, being merciful, will forgive the person. There's, I guess you could say, an art to a good apology. And when you make an apology, you should be very clear about what you are apologizing for. Now, in the case you described, you weren't even aware that you offended the person, but you're surmising that you offended the person because the person is avoiding you. So in that case, I think you just have to say that, something like this, of course it would depend, but something like, you're very dear to me, I treasure our relationship, and, you're not responding to my phone calls, and so I must have offended you, and if I did, I wasn't aware of it, but please let me know what I did to offend you and how I can make up for it, because I don't want to lose this relationship. And it's also it's not good for the other person to hold that inside. So it'll be good for the other person to forgive you, be good for you, and it will be good for the other person also to forgive you.
Thank you, Maharaj. Sanbita.
Sorry, Prabhu. Sorry, I have just to ask one more thing. I have done that, Guru Maharaj, that you have told me to, you have to write it in such a way. I have done that, but still I have not received the forgiveness.
Yeah. So then it's glad you brought it up, because I also thought of one other thing, which is to try to have a third party intervene. And maybe the third party can help, smooth things out. Yeah, because sometimes they're too upset, they don't want to hear from you. But if you find someone who's liked by the other person and respected by the other person, to sort of appeal to them to, be open at least to reviving the relationship with you, then I think that would be the only thing left. Otherwise, as for your own spiritual life, what Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says is just, incessantly chant the holy name and, pray to the Lord for forgiveness.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, our next question is again from Sabita Abhiraman.
Hare Krishna, sorry, I had another question. When you see a senior devotee do Vaishnava Aparadh, then what do you do? Because you're hesitant to say something, then what do you do in that case?
You mean blasphemy?
Yes, say something bad about someone, some other devotee.
Uh-huh. Well, you shouldn't hear it, It would depend on the circumstances, but one possibility could be to change the subject. And, you could say something like, you're such a senior devotee and, I really admire you. And can you tell me something nice about Krishna? Or, Prabhupada, or your experiences with Prabhupada. I think that would be one good approach.
Thank you, Maharaj. I have one question on Diksha Guru and Siksha Guru. We do Sankirtan, we preach, we bring down devotees to Krishna consciousness. We are praised. We say you get some pious activity for making many devotees. So my question is, the Diksha Guru takes the sinful reactions of a disciple. So my question now is, does a Siksha Guru who brings the person to devotional service, or does the temple president who is training the devotees before he recommends them to Guru for initiation, does he share in the sinful reaction of such a devotee?
And why are you asking this question?
Because somebody asked me the question, I was trying to speculate. I wasn't perfectly giving the right answer.
Uh-huh. I would say they do share, because it's mentioned in Shastra, for example, that the king, or the president of a country, enjoys a portion of the pious activities of the citizens and also suffers a portion of their sinful reactions. So anyone who's in a position of authority will have some reaction, either good or bad. So we should be careful who we bring in. And when we bring them in, we should be careful to help them so that they progress nicely.
Thank you, Gurudev. In the absence of no more questions, maybe we'll let Maharaj take some rest. So we ask all devotees to kindly unmute yourselves and let's chant Hare Krishna to Maharaj for coming to the platform.
Hare Krishna,
Krishna,
Hare Krishna,
Hare
Krishna Krishna,
Krishna,
Hare Hare,
Hare
Hare
Hare,
Rama,
Hare Rama,
Rama
Hare Krishna.
Very nice. And after that, I would suggest that we offer Vaishnava Pranam.
Okay.
Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
His Holiness Giriraj Guru Maharaj Ki Jai.
Yes, Bujodu.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Guru Maharaj. Guru Maharaj is still here. Maybe you have
Krishna.
Yes, Gurudev. Guru Maharaj, there was one question in the chat room somebody was asking. Don't know if you will know.
Okay. Okay.
Somebody is asking in the chat room, can we take care of a devotee who is very sick but has been offending his guru? It's a serious question. Somebody is sick, who is very sick, but who is also offending my guru. This devotee is not willing to understand my point of view in regard to my guru. The person who is asking this question is called Sankalpa. Sankalpa.
Is Sankalpa on Zoom? Can we see?
It's on the chat room. He posed the question on the chat room.
Oh, so does that mean we can see him?
I don't know if he's still here, if he left. I just saw it now. I'm sorry. I didn't see it earlier.
Okay. All right. So now what's the question?
The question is somebody is sick, very sick.
Yeah.
If they can take care of him or her, although he or she has been offending his guru.
Oh, that's a very good question. I would say so. We should try to help any devotee in need. And by helping the devotee, that devotee, will appreciate us. And I would hope that after being cared for by a good disciple of the guru, that the devotee who was helped would repent having offended the guru and then try to rectify the situation with the guru. But yeah, I don't think we should avoid that person. We should always give devotees a chance to rectify and improve.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Since you are still here, I will throw one more question, if you don't mind.
Okay.
We are never tired of hearing from you. We want to keep you as long as we can. So I was reading in the letters of Srila Prabhupada,
Yes.
where he was saying, I never said that. I never said that in so many cases or instances. It's like somebody will say, Guru Maharaj said this. Guru Maharaj said you should do this. Guru Maharaj said you should go to this temple, make you. So using the name of a guru when the guru never really gives such instruction.
Yes.
What should the devotee do? Because sometimes such instruction, the devotee later found out that his guru never gave him such instruction. So how shall we relate to the management who uses guru's name in vain like that? Like they were doing with Prabhupada.
Oh, well, if the guru is present, and if you have some doubt, then you can just ask the guru that so-and-so said this, and I'm ready to do whatever you want and whatever you say, but I just want to confirm that this is actually what you want and what you said.
But sometimes it can also be seen that you don't have trust in the management. You always want to find out from guru. It can create some doubts.
But it seems from the way you've presented the question, you don't have full faith.
Yes, I don't have full faith because so many things have been happening with the name of guru, which I later found out was not true. So it really made me to lose faith in some kind of management.
So I think if the management perceives that you don't have full faith in them, you could say that, if you can do it without causing awkwardness, you could say, well, this happened and that happened when you said, the guru said, but actually the guru didn't say. So because of those experiences, you just want to double check and make sure.
Thank you, Gurudev.
I mean, we should be open in our dealings with each other. And, they shouldn't take offense if you have a legitimate concern based on past experience. Yeah, we should always be ready to be corrected and learn and improve. We shouldn't get all upset because our false ego is hurt.
Thank you, Gurudev. I have another question on Aswatthama. Aswatthama killed the 5 sons of Draupadi, but it was said that he will be the next Vyasadeva. So how did somebody who commits such a heinous crime be given to the position of Vyasadeva? I don't understand it.
Oh, I didn't know that Aswatthama was told that he would be given the position of Vyasadeva. Where is that?
Yeah, somebody gave a class and mentioned it, that he was promised to be the next Vyasadeva because he will suffer 332,000 years for that killing, after which he will be the next Vyasadeva. So I've been wondering, why not took birth again or go back to Godhead? Why taking position of Vyasadeva?
So you're saying that he
killed the 5 sons of Draupadi.
Yeah, and then what was going to happen for 2,000 years?
He will suffer the consequences for 332,000 years, after which he will become the next Vyasadeva.
All right, well, assuming that's true, what's your problem? I mean, he has 330,000 years to repent and reform. You know, there's a saying, every saint has a past and every sinner has a future. So, I mean, just going along with the way you explained it, if he repents and is reformed after 330,000 years, then yeah, why not give him a chance? I mean, sometimes the Vyasadeva is an incarnation of Krishna, but it is a position. Anyone in principle can occupy the position of Vyasa. So. And I'm sure he wouldn't be allowed to occupy the position of Vyasa if he wasn't qualified.
Okay, thank you so much. If you want to take more questions, there are a lot of questions we can give, Maharaj.
There are more questions?
People always have questions, but due to time, they don't want to disturb your holiness, so they can just say no questions. I have one more question on Dhruva Maharaj.
No, I want to.
Who's speaking?
Yes. Krishna Priya. Krishna Priya.
Krishna Priya, please go on.
Well, I was listening to the conversation just now, Maharaj. Yes, you can hear me?
Yes,
Maharaj?
yes.
Hare Krishna? Yes, Maharaj, I was just wondering, following what Prabhu was asking, because it said when a person commits sin and the king, punishes him, he gets absolved from his sin. So Aswathama committed these heinous acts, these sinful acts, but wasn't he then freed from his sins because Arjuna punished him there and then on instruction of Lord Krishna?
Oh, yeah. Yes, I would say so. I would say so, yes.
Thank you, Maharaj. Yes, I was just kind of, I was getting a bit bewildered. How does it work then?
Hare Krishna.
Maharaj, we have another question from Radhakund Devidasi.
Yes, Radhakund Devidasi.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj. Thank you so much for your patience. Maharaj, I wanted to ask if my 8-year-old son, he is very enthusiastic to watch Mahabharat. I don't know if it's age appropriate yet. Should I let him watch Mahabharat?
Did you ask him why he is so eager to see it?
Well, he saw Bhishma bed of arrow, and he is very curious. He wants to know how that happened. He wants to know how he got there. He wants to know everything about Mahabharat. And he also hears some stories here and there, and he's very curious. So he wants to dive in deep. I don't know if I should.
Yeah. Well, you're fortunate to have such an advanced soul as your son, so interested in Krishna Lila.
Yeah.
I would say you should let him. You would watch with him.
Yeah.
And so, if anything comes up, if he has questions, you can answer. But I would let him watch Mahabharata. Yeah.
Our next question is from Sahadev again. Sahadev, please.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I guess this question I have asked one sannyasi before on this platform, and he did give an answer to the question, but I think he didn't give much information on it, and I feel it's a very serious problem we have in ISKCON. That is, sometimes we read the scriptures and we do not really understand what we read, even though we might know, we might be able to quote it verbatim. And unless we ask from personalities like your very self, the tendency of making mistake is really huge. And that is, for example, Krishna says in the Gita, he also says in Chaitanya Charitamrita, many places, that for one who is being honored, dishonor is worse than death. And so there are some devotees, when they are faced with certain situations whereby they feel the dishonor is too huge, the best option for them is to end their lives, and they kill themselves, they commit suicide. So I would like you to give us some insight as to the real purport or import of such statements that Krishna, Lord Chaitanya made, that to one whom much is given, dishonor is worse than death. So we do not commit suicide in the name of such statements. Hare Krishna.
Suicide is very sinful.
Yes.
It's like murder. I mean, you can't create life, so you don't have the right to take life, including your own life. And in many societies, suicide is illegal. And if someone attempts to commit suicide and survives, they can be punished. So, you know, when Krishna told Arjuna to fight, and, you know, for one who's been honored, dishonor is worse than death, that was just to encourage him, you know, to fight and not face the dishonor of being called a coward or whatever. But yeah, suicide is very sinful. And yeah, we should really, but again, you know, that as a rule, we want to honor devotees. Even if they make mistakes, still we want to honor them. And so they shouldn't feel, you know, that they're being dishonored in the society of devotees. I mean, sure, when they become devotees, people in materialistic society might dishonor them. You know, that's something totally different. But in the society of devotees, they should not be dishonored. Yeah. Amanina manadena. Should always be ready to offer all respects to others, especially devotees.
Thank you, Maharaj. I have one question on coronavirus, and as devotees, can I ask?
Okay. Okay.
I would like to know, as devotees of Krishna, we have spiritual knowledge, spiritual wisdom. We are talking about saving the world spiritually, but materially, is there anything as a movement or spiritual support or assistance ISKCON can give to the world in regards to coronavirus?
Well, I think as members of society, we should follow all the recommendations. We should wear masks. We should practice social distancing and do whatever is required to avoid getting the coronavirus, to avoid transmitting it. Generally speaking, we should go out as little as possible so that we don't risk exposure. Yeah, we should be careful. Like Srila Prabhupada said in his conversations with Brahmatirtha Prabhu, who was Bob Cohen at the time, in Perfect Questions, Perfect Answers. He said, becoming a devotee doesn't mean that you defy the laws of nature. He said, for example, if in a jungle, if it's known that there's a tiger, you shouldn't go there. Think that, oh, I'm a devotee, so I don't have to follow anything. But you should be, conscious that there's danger and you shouldn't take chances. So yeah, we should be careful.
Because in these papers you read today, Aswatthama sent out a Brahmastra. So I was thinking if there's any healing Brahmastra spiritual organization like ISKCON can spread to the world to neutralize this virus.
Well,
because we have so many mantras, Gayatri, so many mantras in ISKCON. It's also Brahmastra. So we can help the world materially to neutralize, to heal the world. That's where I was asking this question.
Well, we can chant Hare Krishna. And get others to chant Hare Krishna. Then and I don't want to speak too much on this particular subject. Not that I'm against it, but I actually do need to move along now because I have other commitments, but I've really enjoyed my time with you.
Yes, Maharaj.
Yeah, I look forward to other opportunities.
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you so much.
Fond memories of Nigeria. I think I was the first devotee from ISKCON to go there. And, just to illustrate how important Srila Prabhupada's books are and the distribution of Srila Prabhupada's books, I met some Nigerians. They could recognize me as a devotee, and they approached me and they said they knew about Krishna consciousness, and I asked them how they knew. And they said one of their friends had lived in England for some time. And while he was in England, he got some of the books, and he brought the books back to Nigeria. And he shared the books with some of his friends. So they read the books, and they became Krishna conscious to some extent before any devotees had ever even gone to Nigeria. That's the power of Srila Prabhupada's book distribution.
Last time you mentioned this, your trip to Nigeria, you mentioned that you went to Nigeria also to raise funds for Juhu Temple construction.
That's true. I raised a lot.
So my question
You're all
is,
welcome to come to Juhu and enjoy. Part of it was your money.
So Maharaj, my question is, as a country, Nigeria, where you raise so much money to build Juhu Temple, is there any spiritual benefit the country will have from that?
Stop that. Stop.
Yeah. Yes, they will. They will.
No. Please stop it.
Okay. Thank you.
And they'll get more benefit from your presence and from the book distribution and the Harinam Sankirtan and the festivals. Yeah. Yes.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Please benedict your country with Krishna consciousness.
We are trying. Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Thank you so much for your patience with us, Maharaj. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Maharaj.
My pleasure.
Everybody.
Thank you.
So we shall chant again one more Hare Krishna before Maharaj go. Can you unmute yourselves, please?
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai. His Holiness Giriraj Swami Maharaj ki Jai.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna.